Hello everyone and welcome to Meta Game Mastery. Today we are doing another live stream on Twitch TV. Our deck of the day is going to be Breya Etherium Shaper. We are building a deck for her live here on the power of the internet. You can catch up on our previous videos on our YouTube channel or look us up on Twitter and Facebook. And if you like what you see, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. So let's take a look at our commander today. Breya Etherium Shaper is 4 colors, greenless. She is white, blue, black, red. 4/4 legendary artifact creature human. When Breya Etherium Shaper enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 blue Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. You can pay 2 colorless mana, sacrifice 2 artifacts, choose 1. Breya deals 3 damage to target player, or target creature gets -4/-4 till end of turn, or you gain 5 life. Breya Etherium Shaper is so good, she had to be banned in 1v1 Commander on Magic the Gathering Online. She's an absolute combo machine. I've seen Breya Etherium Shaper builds with over 65 infinite combos in them. We're going to go a little bit more budget today. But that said, if you have the extra money, you can just build an all combos deck with Breya, and it is so powerful when you build it that if it's widely considered if you fall behind a Breya deck, there's no catching up. That's how good Breya is. So we're going to be taking a little bit of a look at her today, putting together some combos for her. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over those combos. The most important of which, put her down here for now, is Astronaut's Altar. This is an absolute combo engine in the deck. It's 3 colorless mana for an artifact that says you can sack a creature to add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. So when Breya enters the battlefield, she creates tokens. Those tokens can be sacrificed for colorless mana. And then with that colorless mana, we can do all kinds of crazy shenanigans. One of the common combos you'll see with Breya is using Astronaut's Altar with Nim Deathmantle. And since I don't have one of those on hand, another very common Breya combo that I'm going to be taking advantage of today is Eldrazi Displacer. He is 3 converted mana cost, 2 colorless, and a white for a 3/3 Eldrazi that has Devoid, so he's colorless himself. You can pay 2 colorless and 1 Oath of the Gatewatch colorless. Exile another target creature, then return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. So with Breya, Eldrazi Displacer, and Astronaut's Altar, you can create an infinite loop where you sacrifice both of her Thopter tokens to Astronaut's Altar, creating 4 colorless mana. You pay 3 colorless mana to Eldrazi Displacer. Flickering Breya, she comes into play tapped, you get 2 more tokens, and you still have 1 colorless mana floating. And you can continue this process infinitely, okay? So Breya's coming in and out, creating tokens, you get infinite colorless mana, and then what you can eventually start doing is you can start burning off those, you can start flickering Breya in and out additional times with your excess colorless mana to get extra Eldrazi or Thopter tokens, and then you can also start paying that extra colorless mana to her pay 2, sacrifice 2 artifacts. Breya deals 3 damage to target player, and you can activate that at instant speed. So you can create this loop that you have the power to interrupt at any time. And once you've pocketed enough excess mana, enough excess Thopters, you can go ahead and do infinite damage to every other player. So that's one infinite combo that will be in the deck. Both of these cards will interact with other cards that I'm about to show you. So I'm going to keep them right here. Another card that we can flicker infinitely depending on our lands in play is Paragon Drake. We just have him in play as long as we have some land that taps for a dedicated colorless mana. We can pay the 3 mana, flicker him, and tap out the rest of our the other 5 mana worth of lands, right? Flicker him, he untaps everything, you pocket 2 mana. Pay the 3 again, tap out, floating the additional mana. He flickers in, you untap all your mana, and you create an infinite mana loop. If you have all 4 colors, or even if you just have additional colorless mana and Breya is already on the board, you can start an infinite loop with flickering Breya, or if, well, in that circumstance, you would be able to infinite loop flicker her. So that's what you would probably want to do. So Paragon Drake works in the place of Astronaut's Altar in that circumstance. Next up is a cute little 2-card infinite mana combo. It's Grand Architect. Grand Architect is 3 CMC, creature Vidalcan Artificer for 1/3 Vidalcan Artificer. Other blue creatures you control get +1/+1. Pay 1 blue, target artifact creature becomes blue until end of turn. And the most important ability on this card, the one we're going to be taking advantage of, is tap an untapped blue creature you control, add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool, spend this mana only to cast artifact spells or activate artifact abilities of artifacts. So with pili-pala, I'm going to set this over here, is 2 colorless for a 1/1 artifact creature Scarecrow with flying. Pay 2 and untap pili-pala to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So what you'll do with pili-pala is first you'll turn pili-pala blue by paying 1 blue mana. And then you will tap him to float 2 colorless mana to pay for his ability to untap him and add 1 mana. Now you've pocketed 1 mana, and you can repeat this process infinitely to create infinite colored mana. That allows you to, with a sack engine, like say Astronaut's Altar, sacrifice Breya, play her from the command zone, and pay the commander tax because you have infinite mana, it doesn't matter, and play her ability. And in doing so, you'll create infinite Thopter tokens, because you always profit 1 every Thopter token if you're sacrificing her to her own ability. And you'll also deal infinite damage via her Lightning Bolt ability. So that's another infinite mana combo we have. Another infinite mana combo for the deck is Vizier of Tumbling Sands. You can also use Fate Stitcher. I like Vizier because it's just a little bit more versatile with the cycling. But if you have both and you want the additional redundancy, that's super important in a combo deck, I would go ahead and run both. When it comes to Vizier of Tumbling Sands, She's 3 casting costs total, 2 colorless and a blue. For a 1/3 human cleric, tap her to untap another target permanent. That includes lands. You can pay 1 colorless and 1 blue to cycle her. When you cycle Vizier of Tumbling Sands, untap target permanent. So you get additional value. And of course, cycling is an ability, so that cannot be countered. Okay? The primary reason we're running her for, though, is for her tap ability, and we're going to combo that with Illusionist Bracers. Illusionist Bracers is 2 colorless mana for an artifact equipment that has equip cost 3. Whenever an ability of equipped creature is activated, if it isn't a mana ability, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. So when you tap Vizier of Tumbling Sands, you can untap a land, and the copy goes on the stack. You target Vizier of Tumbling Sands. Untapping Vizier of Tumbling Sands, and you can repeatedly tap and untap lands infinitely to get infinite colored mana of whatever your lands can produce. Hold on, folks. There's more. And this is just a budget build, mind you. This is the easy stuff. There's even more that you can do with this. So World Gorger Dragon is 6 convert mana cost, 3 colorless, red, red, red. Don't worry about that. We're not going to be paying it. He's a 7/7 Nightmare Dragon with flying and trample. Don't worry about that. We'll never be attacking with him. When World Gorger Dragon enters the battlefield, exile all other permanents you control. Wow, that's a pretty big drawback. When World Gorger Dragon leaves the battlefield, return the exiled cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. Okay, well that doesn't hurt so bad, but as long as he's in play, I don't have access to my lands. I don't have access to anything else. Well, there's a certain card that we'll be using with him called Animate Dead. 1 colorless and a black, enchant creature aura. Take target creature card from any graveyard and put it directly into play under your control. It gets -1, -0. Treat this creature as though it were just summoned. If Animate Dead is removed, bury the creature into its owner's graveyard. So what happens when you put Animate Dead on World Gorger Dragon is you put the Animate Dead on World Gorger Dragon. World Gorger Dragon enters the battlefield, exiling Animate Dead. Right? This is exiled. There's no longer an Animate Dead. He goes back to the graveyard. Animate Dead comes back into play, bringing back World Gorger Dragon. World Gorger Dragon exiles, and you get to do that infinitely. You can tap your mana in between him coming into play and his enter the battlefield ability going on the stack and resolving. Okay, so what you could do is float your mana, and then when your lands come back into play, they come back into play untapped. So this is a way for you to create infinite colored mana. Well, what are you going to do with that infinite colored mana? Assume that you already have Breya on the board at this point. Okay, Breya is coming into play, creating 2 Thopter tokens. Okay, and those Thopter tokens are immediately dying or immediately going away. You can, before they go away, pay 2 mana and sacrifice those Thopter tokens to deal 3 damage to target player. This loop goes infinitely. Now you have to be careful not to start the Animate Dead World Gorger Dragon loop until you have Breya in play, but at that point, you're just creating infinite mana, dealing infinite damage, creating infinite blue Thopter tokens, and dealing infinite damage to all of your opponents. So that is just another infinite combo. It does require that you have the World Gorger Dragon in your graveyard first. So it is vulnerable to, say, Graveyard Disruption. It's not the most reliable combo, but at the same time, it's just straight up, all I need is lands, Animate Dead, and World Gorger Dragon in my graveyard. It's pretty cheap to put together mana-wise. Next up, we have Dramatic Reversal. 1 colorless and a blue, instant, untap all non-land permanents you control. Okay, so with Dramatic Reversal, if you will also need Isochron's Scepter. 2 colorless mana, artifact, imprint. When Isochron's Scepter enters the battlefield, you may exile an instant with converted mana cost 2 or less from your hand. Pay 2 colorless mana and tap it. You may copy the exiled card. If you do, you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So you'll also need any number of mana rocks that tap for more than 2 colorless mana for this combo to work. But what happens is you've got Dramatic Reversal imprinted on Isochron Scepter. You float 3 mana or more, whatever's easiest. You only need 3 mana, okay? 3 mana from non-land permanents. You pay 2 of it to activate Isochron Scepter. Dramatic Reversal untaps those rocks plus Isochron Scepter. You pocket the floating mana, which creates an infinite mana loop. You could then spend that infinite mana on playing Breya Etherium Shaper. Breya is her own sack outlet, so she could just sacrifice herself to her ability, and you could get infinite Thopter tokens in the process while dealing infinite damage. So Breya's just a machine. I mean, she's built-in sack outlet, built-in direct damage, built-in enter the battlefield with 2 extra bodies. It's ridiculous how powerful this effect is. Next up, we have another 2-card infinite combo. Dual Caster Mage. It's 3 mana, 1 colorless, red, for a 2/2 human wizard with flash. When Dual Caster Mage enters the battlefield, copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. All right? And then Ghostly Flicker is 2 colorless and a blue, instant, exile 2 target artifacts, creatures, and or lands you control. Then return those cards to the battlefield under your control. Okay, so this is kind of an infinite loop. You either have Dual Caster Mage in play, or you play it in response to Ghostly Flicker. Either way, okay? Ghostly Flicker, well, you have to play it in response to Ghostly Flicker, I believe. So you play it in response to Ghostly Flicker, you copy the Ghostly Flicker, okay? So you have another Ghostly Flicker that goes on the stack on top of this. It goes off the stack, you flicker it, you copy the original copy, and you also flicker either Breya or land, or even a mana rock, whatever's easiest. Therefore, getting the additional tokens or getting the additional mana that you float by tapping that land before it goes in and out, and it comes back untapped, of course. So you'll Dual Caster Mage, targeting the original Ghostly Flicker. The new Ghostly Flicker will resolve, letting Dual Caster Mage's ability go on the stack on top of the original Ghostly Flicker. You could do this infinitely, and then once you get Breya, Breya has to already be in play. Once you get enough mana, you can just start dumping your infinite Blue Thopter tokens, because you can target Breya with this loop. You can start dumping that infinite mana and infinite Blue Thopter tokens into infinite damage. Kind of nuts. Next up, we have Salvaging Station. 6 colorless mana, artifact. Return target non-creature artifact card from with converted mana cost 1 or less from your graveyard to play. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, you may untap Salvaging Station. So, you play something along the lines of Flare Husk. 1 colorless mana, artifact, equipment, living weapon. When this equipment enters the battlefield, put a 0/0 black germ creature token onto the battlefield and attach this to it. It has an equip cost of 2. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. Don't worry about any of that. The idea is, by sacrificing this equipment to, say, Kirkland Ironworks, you can reap infinite colorless mana. So by sacrificing this to Kirkland Ironworks, the germ token dies, untapping Salvaging Station. You can tap Salvaging Station to put Flare Husk back into play. You could sacrifice Flare Husk to Salvaging Station. The germ token dies, untapping Salvaging Station. And it just keeps going infinitely, creating infinite colorless mana. That infinite colorless mana can then be pumped into Eldrazi Displacer. And honestly, now that I say that out loud, it feels like that combo just is kind of win more. I don't know if this is going to fit in the deck. So I'll set that one aside. That one feels very win more. Next up, we have Draws Scorpion. It's 4 colorless mana for a 3/1 artifact creature. When Draws Scorpion or another artifact creature is put into a graveyard from play, you may untap target artifacts. Now, when it comes to Draws Scorpion, he synergizes really well with Phyrexian Altar. He also does really well with Pentavis. Pentavis is 7 colorless mana for a 0/0 artifact creature construct. Pentavis enters the battlefield with 5 +1/+1 counters on him. Remove a +1/+1 counter from Pentavis. Put a 1/1 colorless Pentavite artifact creature token with flying onto the battlefield. You can remove you can pay 1 and sacrifice a Pentavite to put a +1/+1 counter on Pentavis. So, without Breya, just Astronaut's Altar and Draw Scorpion and Pentavis, you can get infinite, enter the battlefield, die, in fact, you don't even need Astronaut's Altar. You could do this with any mana rock that taps for 2 or more. You can get infinite, enter the battlefield, infinite death triggers. because what happens is you pay the 2 mana from, say, let's say you have your Sol Ring out, or Astronaut's Altar, but let's say you have something that isn't already an infinite combo machine, like Sol Ring. Just a good value card, right? It taps for 2 colorless mana. You tap it, float the 2 mana, and then with Pentavis, you activate its ability to remove a +1/+1 counter, getting a Pentavite into play. That's an enter the battlefield trigger. You use the other close mana to sacrifice the Pentavite, triggering Eldrazi Scorpion to untap your Sol Ring. Okay? And then you get a Death trigger. That's going to be particularly important when we have cards in the deck like Reckless Fireweaver. Reckless Fireweaver is 1 colorless and a red for a 1/3 human artificer. When an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, Reckless Fireweaver deals 1 damage to each opponent. So while we have these infinite enter the battlefield triggers going, I'm doing an infinite loop of damage to my opponents. Or alternatively, we have Disciple of the Vault. Pay 1 black mana for a 1/1 human cleric. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from play, you may have target opponent lose 1 life. So each time one of my Pentavites is sacrificed to the Pentavis, that it creates life loss, and I can just keep that loop going infinitely. And then the last combo I have isn't necessarily an instant infinite combo, but it's too cool for me not to include, especially since both of these cards are just generally good on their own. We have Aetherflux Reservoir, the Death Star. 4 colorless mana for an artifact. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you have cast this turn. Pay 50 life. Aetherflux Reservoir does 50 damage to target creature or player. And then you have Sidri, Galvanic Genius, Esper Colors, which is white, blue, black, for a 2/2 legendary human artificer. You can pay 1 blue, target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness, each equal to its converted mana cost until end of turn. So you pay 1 blue, target Aetherflux Reservoir, make him a 4/4 with his abilities. And then you pay 1 white and 1 black, target artifact creature gains death touch and lifelink until end of turn. So this assumes that you're already at 51 life or more, okay? Which you can gain life with Breya. Not really the best use of Breya in my opinion, but you could in a pinch to facilitate this combo. Or you could just gain the life off of Aetherflux Reservoir, giving other artifacts lifelink, etc. Okay? You pay the 50 life, and the Aetherflux Reservoir does 50 damage to target creature or player. You deal the 50 damage to a player, lifelink triggers, you gain 50 life. So you net 0. And then you just do that again to the next opponent, and you do that again to the next opponent. In some competitive formats, this combo is a little bit fragile just for the fact that if someone scoops in response to you targeting them, then you don't deal the damage, you don't gain the 50 life, and you wind up just being out 50 life for it. That's kind of a jerk move, though. If your play group is cool with you just finishing the game with a combo, then I imagine they'll be more chill than that. But if you're going to be playing competitively, it's something to be aware of. Because you definitely don't want to walk in and just wind up losing 50 life with no payoff. That sucks. Or you could just make sure you target them last. I mean, as long as they're the only other person at the board, you still won the game. And of course, Sol Ring, because, as the professor always says, because Sol Ring. It's Commander, dude. What are you doing? Oh, I nearly forgot. In fact, did I mix these piles up? Another infinite combo with Draw a Scorpion. So many combos in this deck, it's ridiculous. And this is just a budget build. I mean, you could add Nim Death Mantle, Kirk Clan Ironworks, Time Sieve with Thopter Foundry and Thopter Assembly. I mean, the list goes on and on. You could do infinite combos with this deck all day long. It's fantastic. So with Nuisance Engine, it's 3 colorless mana for an artifact, pay 2 colorless, tap it, put a 0/1 pest artifact creature token into play. So with Nuisance Engine and say we're going back to Astronaut's Altar, or yeah, I think it would have to be Astronaut's Altar in this particular circumstance. You can pay the 2 mana, put the pest creature token into play, sacrifice it to Astronaut's Altar. That triggers Draw Scorpion. Draw Scorpion untaps Nuisance Engine. You can take the 2 floating mana to activate Nuisance Engine again. You have infinite death, infinite enter the battlefield effects. And what that does is it facilitates you getting your Disciple of the Vault, Reckless Fireweaver. You can even throw in cards like Impact Tremors, Phosphoros, God of the Forge, etc., etc. There, Zulaport, Cutthroat, the list goes on. But depending on how many of those you want to run, you can run any or all of them and do this infinite loop, dealing infinite damage, infinite life drain, whatever other facilitator you have on the board. So Nuisance Engine is a great addition to the deck. So those are the infinite combos that I'm looking to put in the deck right now. Because this is a combo deck, the same rules don't apply for deck construction that you would with, say, your typical balanced mid-range build or with your typical control style build. What you want to do with combo is you're looking to race. You're looking to get your combos online on the board, win the game as fast as possible. So we're going to be looking primarily at card draw and tutors with a little bit of interaction. We're going to have some key counter spells, some key removal spells, and mana ramp that specifically synergizes with this artifact build that we've laid out thus far. So in that regard, those combos are going to be our must-haves in the deck, and then everything else is going to sort of orbit around them. For example, for the World Gorge of Dragon combo, we are going to need to get him into our graveyard, and we also want to be able to get through our graveyard pretty quickly. So we're going to use Reforge the Soul, which is kind of the poor man's Wheel of Fortune. It's 5 colorless mana, or 5 mana total, I should say, 3 colorless, red, for a sorcery. Each player discards his or her hand and draws 7 cards. There's also a miracle cost on this. In case you're not familiar with miracle costs, you may cast this card for its miracle cost when you draw it if it's the first card you've drawn this turn. So, typically we want to draw this off the top of our deck. Most of the time in the 99, we'll just be drawing it on our turn. Typically we want to pay 1 colorless and 1 red for its miracle costs, but in a pinch we could still pay 5 for it. And it's still wheels, we get to discard World Gorger Dragon, and get a full grip. If we play through our whole hand, we get a full grip. And it also messes with our opponents. I like messing with opponents. I like ruining their day. That's kind of what you're there to do. Windfall is 3 colorless, or 3 mana total, 2 colorless and a blue sorcery. Each player discards his or her hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. Once again, get a full grip, go through our deck faster, and discard World Gorger Dragon to facilitate that combo. And Gamble. Straight up classic tutor. Pay 1 red mana for sorcery. Search your library for a card. Put that card into your hand. Discard a card at random. Then shuffle your library. So it's just super value. I mean, no restriction on what you get. Just you risk putting it in your graveyard. But if you wind up discarding a World Gorger Dragon, great. Otherwise, you could just get whatever combo piece you're missing. Like literally any combo piece. Also, great cards for this strategy as well. Obviously, Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor. If you're looking to drop like an extra $60 on the deck. But the consistency, the consistency. Also, not exactly budget, but a super good card is Enlightened Tutor. It's 1 white mana for an instant. Search your library for an artifact or enchantment card. Reveal that card, shuffle your library, and put that on top. Typically, you want to play this at the end of your opponent's turn so that you can search up your missing combo piece, whether it be Animate Dead, Illusionist Bracers, pili-pala, Astronaut's Altar, Isochron Scepter, Nuisance Engine, Draw Scorpion, Aetherflux Reservoir, Pentavus, or if you're just looking to get one of your many other artifacts in this deck, it's a great way for you to get additional consistency. Next up, we have its brother, Mystical Tutor. 1 blue mana instant. Search your library for an instant or sorcery card and reveal that, and shuffle your library, then put that card on top. So if you're looking to search up your Dramatic Reversal, Ghostly Flicker, or any of these other cards that facilitate you getting your combos off, you can do so quickly and easily. And just like the last card, you want to play it at the end of your opponent's turn, usually. All right. Another classic search card is Trinket Mage. 3 converted mana cost, 2 colorless and a blue for a 2/2 human wizard. When Trinket Mage comes into play, you may search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost 1 or less, reveal that card, and put it into your hand. Then, if you do, shuffle your library. Sol Ring. I'm wondering if any of our other combo cards are 1 or less. Sol Ring, eventually I'm going to get into our mana ramp and card draw, and there are some very powerful artifacts for 1 mana. Odds are, if you've been playing Commander for a long time, you know the power of Trinket Mage and the 1 mana artifacts it fetches up. And then another tutor for this deck, potentially more important tutor, is Trophy Mage. 3 converted mana cost, 2 colorless and a blue for a 2/2 human wizard. When Trophy Mage enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost 3. Reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Astronaut's Altar costs 3. That's a very important combo piece in this deck. And Nuisance Engine costs 3, as well as many of our mana ramp spells. And many of our utility spells as well, which you will see coming up. And I believe our last card for tutoring for the time being is Whir of Invention. This is the artifact Court of Calling. It's X mana, blue, instant, improvise. Your artifacts can help cast this spell. Each artifact you tap after you're done activating mana abilities pays for 1 colorless mana. Search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost X or less. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So this is Court of Calling for artifacts. And I don't know if you know this, but Court of Calling is a good card. Puts it directly into play at instant speed. So being able to search your deck for exactly what you need and put it into play, that's powerful stuff. Next up. I think I'm done with the tutors for now. If I come across any more while we go through the pile of cards that I'm considering, then we'll just go over them at the time. So let's talk a little bit about mana ramp. Cards like Foundry Inspector. 3 colorless mana for a 3/2 artifacts creature construct. Artifact spells you control cost 1 less to cast. Super budget, super good value. You just get 1 colorless less on the cost of all of your artifacts, whether they be colored or colorless. Now, of course, they have to have colorless mana, so, for example, Breya won't be affected by this, but that's okay, because this is just a way for us to power out our other cards quickly and easily. Next up, we have Basalt Monolith, 3 colorless mana for an artifact. Tap, add 3 colorless mana to your mana pool. This does not untap during your untap phase. Instead, you can pay 3 colorless mana at any other time to untap it. So this is a really good card for, say, Draw Scorpion. Draw Scorpion will just untap him, untap it every time you sacrifice an artifact to any sack outlet, and in doing so, you can create infinite colorless mana on top of infinite enter the battlefield effects with, say, Pentavis. Super good addition to the deck. Also goes infinite with Grim Monolith if you have one of those. And then I've been doing a lot with colorless mana. I do want some color fixing in the deck, so Classic, Commander Sphere, 3 colorless mana, artifact, tap, add 1 mana to your mana pool of any color in your commander's color identity. Pretty versatile, pretty straightforward. You can also sacrifice it to draw a card. In the pinch, if I'm running out of cards, or if I just really need an option and I don't need that additional mana anymore, I'll just go ahead and pitch Commander Sphere. Felwar Stone. I like this in any deck that's at least 3 colors. It even works fine in 2 color decks. It's 2 colorless mana, artifact, tap, add 1 mana to your mana pool of any color that a land and opponent controls could produce. Being 4 colors, odds are I'm going to have access to the colored mana I need, and it doesn't even enter the battlefield tap. So it's good color fixing, it's good mana ramp, it's just cheap and efficient, and I like it a lot. Speaking of cheap and efficient, one of the few removal spells that I'm looking at for this deck, I'm going to move these piles. I'm going to put our combo pieces in one section, our mana ramp in another, our card draw and tutors in another. Because typically when, see, some of these combo pieces are technically mana ramp, but I guess I can circle back around to that later. Technically, when you are building an EDH deck, there's a good rule of thumb. You want 38 to 40 lands. You want approximately 10 removal spells, 10 to 12 mana ramp spells, and 10 card draw spells. And then you want to put approximately 30 cards towards your main deck strategy, your kill conditions. So, that's how I'm going to sort this. I am going to try and make sure that I have a good chunk of mana ramp in addition to removal and card draw. Speaking of removal, let's get that cheap and efficient dispatch. 1 white mana, instant, tap target creature, but if you have Metalcraft, which means you have at least 3 or more artifacts in play or under your control. Breya alone gets you Metalcraft with your commander being an artifact and the 2 artifact tokens she creates. You exile that creature instead. So it's like if you're in an artifact deck, it's like a Swords to Plowshares or a Path to Exile with no downside, no upside for your opponent. That's pretty darn good and will do just fine in this deck. Okay. Mana ramp spell, Storm the Vaults. 4 converted mana cost, 2 colorless, blue, red, legendary enchantment. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap. Sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 5 or more artifacts, transform Storm the Vaults. In this deck, I should get those 5 artifacts pretty easily, pretty consistently. And then Storm the Vault, of course, becomes Vault of Catlacan. Legendary land. Tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, or tap, add 1 blue mana to your mana pool for each artifact you control. So it's basically a better Tolarian Academy once it transforms. And in this deck, it should very consistently transform. So I really, really, really like this card. Even though it's going to come a little bit late game for the mana ramp, the mana output it's going to produce is going to be spectacular. So that's why I'm going to be putting this in the mana ramp category for this deck. No doubt in my mind. Instant classic. Next up, Skull Clamp. This is one of those cards that you can tutor up with Trophy Mage I mentioned before. It's 1 colorless mana for an artifact equipment, 1 equip cost of 1. Equipped creature gets +1, -1. Whenever a equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards. This is an amazingly efficient card draw engine. I'm going to be generating nuisance tokens. I'm going to be generating Thopter tokens. I'm going to have little artifact creatures all over the board. And for 1 colorless mana, I can convert them into 2 card draw. I mean, it's if the creature's small enough, it's a sack engine in and of itself. It's fantastic, super powerful, banned in many formats. That's how you know it's got to be good. It's got to be good. Okay. Next up, we have Tezzeret, Master of Metal. This is a Planeswalker deck. Planeswalker, so he's a little bit high cost. He's 4 colorless mana, blue-black, for a 5 loyalty Planeswalker with a +1 ability to reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an artifact. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I could pay -3. Target opponent loses life equal to the number of artifacts you control. Or his ultimate is -8, gain control of all artifacts and creatures target opponent controls. So, yeah, that's everything we want, though. I mean, it's card advantage, it's an alternate kill condition, being able to just drain out my opponent for having a ridiculous board state, and the -8 is just saying I'm going to be dominant when it comes to the artifact game. So that's just icing on the cake. I really like this card for this deck, maybe as a top end for our curve. If for whatever reason they shut down our other combos or the deck isn't firing, we can just use this and really wrap up the game. Next up is an efficiency card. It's Cranial Plating, 2 colorless mana, artifact equipment with an equip cost of 1. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. Or you can pay a black, attach Cranial Plating to target creature you control at instant speed. Very powerful effect. Just paying 2 mana for an equipment that's going to scale up our power so much as we develop our board state. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculously powerful, especially in this deck where I don't know exactly, but I'm going to estimate 75 to 80% of the cards in this deck are going to be all artifacts. Yeah, it's going to get nuts. It's going to get nuts real fast. This could potentially even turn Breya into a Voltron commander, although I doubt that's what we would do. You probably just put it on some other artifact creature and smash face every once in a while. That's a maybe. Doesn't really play into our combos, but it's a good efficiency card. Too good to ignore. Scrap Trawler is another efficiency card. 3 colorless mana for a 3/2 artifact creature construct. Whenever Scrap Trawler or another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with lesser converted mana cost. So this card, when we start sacrificing artifacts to Breya, when we start sacrificing Breya to herself, when we start sacrificing Breya to Astronaut's Altar, or just when our artifacts generally die, we get to refill our grip from our graveyard, get that additional recursion. So that's a pretty powerful effect. I like it. I think it's worth considering. Oh, on another tutor card, guys. Hold on. Drift of Phantasms. It's 3 converted mana cost, 2 colorless and a blue, for a 0/5 Spirit Defender with flying. It also has Transmute, which is pay 1 colorless, blue, discard this card, search your library for a card with the same converted mana cost as this card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Play this ability only as a sorcery. Now, it's still technically an ability, so it cannot be countered. It can be stifled, but it cannot be countered. And you can search up from your deck important cards like Astronaut's Altar, Eldrazi Displacer, Ghostly Flicker, Dualcaster Mage, Grand Architect, Vizier of Tumbling Sands. I mean, our 3 converted mana cost is pretty heavy in the deck so far. Sidri, Galvanic Genius, Nuisance Engine. Technically, you can look up Scrap Trawler, but why would you? Basalt Monolith, Boundary Inspector, probably not the best target there. Or if you just really want to refill your grip, you could go ahead and get Windfall. I mean, that's a super versatile tutor. You basically almost never play this spell for as a creature. You're just going to activate its ability and get the tutor, but it's a really good tutor effect. So definitely warrants place in the deck. Next up, we have Padim, Console of Innovation. He's 4 converted mana cost, 3 colorless and a blue for a 1/4 legendary Vidalcan Artificer. Legends you control have, or artifacts you control, have hexproof. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control the artifact with the highest converted mana cost or tied for the highest converted mana cost, draw a card. So it protects all of our artifacts, including Breya, from spot removal. It also makes it so that our opponents have a more difficult time interrupting our combos once they get going. And on top of all that, it gives us the potential additional card draw every turn. So it's card advantage. That's just such a value card. It's so good. How can I not run this? Speaking of straight up value cards, let's talk about Voltaic Key. Classic card from way back in the day. It's 1 colorless mana for an artifact. Pay 1 colorless. Tap it to untap target artifacts. This card turns your Basalt Monolith into a Sol Ring. This card does everything. You'd be amazed the number of uses you come up with for this card. It's just any other artifact that taps for 2 mana or more, you can activate with this. This becomes effectively a mana rock for you. You can get multiple triggers off of an artifact's tap abilities. It just gets nuts so fast. It's super classic card, super good card, and really feeds into a lot of infinite combos to make them get even more out of control. So definitely a card that we're going to want for this deck. Value engine. If there's one thing Magic players appreciate, it's value. Okay. And then speaking of mana rocks, I'm just going to throw out a couple more that I'm considering. Worn Power Stone is the fixed Sol Ring. It's 3 colorless mana. Artifact, when Worn Power Stone enters the battlefield, it enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it to add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. So it comes into play tapped. It costs 3 mana to get a mana rock that taps for 2, but that still goes infinite with our draw a Scorpion combo. It still goes. It still gets us powerful mana ramp. So I like it. I think it's going in the deck, at least for now. Darksteel Ingot's a little bit more iffy. It's 3 colorless mana for an indestructible artifact. Tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. If I really want color fixing, I could go this route. I don't know that I will, though. That's probably the iffiest card I've shown you so far. Next up, Spine of Ishsa. It's 7 colorless mana artifact. When Spine of Ishsa enters the battlefield, destroy target permanent. When Spine of Ishsa is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return Spine of Ishsa to its owner's hand. So this, with any sack outlet and infinite colorless mana, lets you completely board wipe everything. You can also cheat it into play from your graveyard with some of the other effects in the deck. It's a super powerful combo engine, and it's probably the best removal we're going to get for the deck. So that's why I really like this card, and it is definitely going in. Next up, we have Duretti Scrap Savant. Before I was going to build Breya, I was going to build Duretti because Duretti is a very powerful card on his own. He's 4 converted mana cost, 3 colorless, and a red for a 3 loyalty Planeswalker with a +2 ability. Discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards. Great for our World Gorger combo. It also synergizes with his next ability, which is -2. Sacrifice an artifact. If you do, return target artifact from your graveyard to the battlefield. Frickin' fantastic. Allowing you to sacrifice anything to cheat something into play, or with Spine of Ishsa, just repeatedly wipe something off the board. And then his ultimate, if you ever get there, is -10. You get an emblem with whenever an artifact is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, return that card to the battlefield at the beginning of your next end step. Super value. Basically, if you get that off, you're going to win the game. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. I love the rummaging ability and the recursion ability, and it's just, it gets nuts so fast with that card. Speaking of value, card that's going to be in the next dual decks, the last dual decks, Elves versus Inventors. Featured foil will be Goblin Welder. And if you didn't know that, I encourage you to take a look at our coverage of the previews on our YouTube channel, Metagame Mastery. If you enjoy our content, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. He's a 1/1 Goblin Artificer for 1 red. Choose target artifact player controls and target artifact card in that player's graveyard. If both targets are still legal as this ability resolves, that player simultaneously sacrifices the artifact and returns the artifact card to the battlefield. So you get to swap. Say I have a Darksteel Ingot that isn't doing much for me. I can go ahead and swap that for a Spine of Ishsa, or any number of other possible effects or artifacts that I like. Being able to just dump cards into my graveyard and then cheat them back into play at no additional cost is pretty fantastic. Especially if I've already gotten some use out of it. Like, say, for example, Ichor Wellspring. 2 colorless mana artifact. When Ichor Wellspring enters the battlefield or is put into the graveyard for the battlefield, draw a card. Really great target for Goblin Welder or Duretti or just any sack outlet in general. Get tons of value off of it. Card draw spells are piling up, but that is where we're going to be prioritizing. Also, along those same lines, we have Mycosynth Wellspring. It's 2 colorless mana for an artifact. When Mycosynth Wellspring enters the battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may search your library for a land card, reveal that card, put it to your hand, then shuffle your library. So it's any form of card advantage. It's good mana fixing, which I like. And so in that regard, it's a good value engine. Also along those same lines, we have Trading Post. 4 colorless mana for an artifact with 4 different abilities. You can pay 1, tap it, and discard a card to gain 4 life. You can pay 1, tap it, pay 1 life, create a 0/1 goat creature token. You can pay 1, tap it, sacrifice a creature, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand, or you can pay 1, tap it, sack an artifact to draw a card. Literally, whatever you need, whether you need to build your board state, you need to gain life to stay in the game, or get up to 50 life for your Death Star combo. If you need to get an artifact card, a combo piece back out of your graveyard, or if you just need to draw into your combo piece. This does whatever you need, and that's fantastic. Next up is another card that I'm surprised I forgot about. It's Marionette Master. 4 colors mana, black for a 1/3 creature, human artificer with Fabricate 3. Fabricate is when this creature enters the battlefield, put 3+1/+1 counters on it, or create 3 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature tokens. Whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. That's awesome. It's kind of like an Uber Disciple of the Vaults, and it's versatile in the fact that it's either an army in the can, or it's a Disciple of the Vault that works that much faster. 4 times as powerful. Put that in the kill condition pile. Shimmer Mirror. This gives us great versatility because it's 3 colorless mana for a 2/2 artifact creature mirror that has flash itself, and you may cast artifact spells as though they had flash, allowing us to bring them in at the end of the opponent's turn, and in response to other spells that our opponents play. That's powerful. Master of Etherium is 3 converted mana cost, 2 colorless and a blue for an artifact creature, Vidalcan Wizard. Master of Ethereum's power and toughness are each equal to the number of artifacts you control. Other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1. So this is an opportunity for us to go tall. And that's really the only thing I would run this for, is the ability to get a really big body on the board and smash face. That +1/+1 actually is a bit of a non-bow with our Skull Clamp, which puts this on the short list to get cut. But its power level is so high that, of course, I consider it. It's worth considering. All right, next up, I'm going to get into an additional kill condition type that I hadn't discussed before, but is potentially very powerful in this deck. And that is Efficient Construction. It's 4 converted mana cost, 3 colorless and a blue enchantment. Oh, no, that's not the right one. That is, well, it plays into it. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. That just gets us additional value. And it also is a repeatable source of artifact tokens for mechanized production, which is what I was actually talking about before. For CMC, 2 colorless, blue. Enchantment Aura. Enchanted artifact you control. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of enchanted artifact. Then, if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game. So you can put this on a Thopter token. You can generate other Thopter tokens. You can even put this on a treasure token. Or you could put it on Breya, and just to get the enter the battlefield effect on the new token version of Breya and generate 2 more blue Thopter tokens every single turn. And in doing so, it gets you that much closer to just having, you don't have to have the same name as what this is enchanting for you to win the game. You just have to have 8 artifacts of the same name. So getting those double Thopters every single turn is another potential way for you to just eke out an alternate kill condition. Redundancy. Redundancy is key. And then along those same lines is Revel in Riches. 5 converted mana cost, 4 colorless, and a black enchantment. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, create a colorless creature artifact or treasure artifact token with tap, sacrifice this artifact token, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game. Excuse me, sorry about that. So yeah, it's an alternate kill condition. You could crank out treasures with Revel in Riches. You can also crank out treasures with Deadeye Plunderers. Deadeye Plunderers synergizes with this deck so well, especially if you're going for a Revel in Riches when it's 5 CMC, that's 3 colorless, blue-black, 3/3, human pirate. Deadeye Plunderers gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. You could pay 2 colorless, blue-black, create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So you could just dump mana into creating more artifact tokens to grow Deadeye Plunderers to get closer to your Revel in Riches alternate win condition. And it synergizes super well because it grows not only based on the number of artifacts that you have in play and or the number of treasure tokens you have in play, just artifacts in general. So basically every card you play in this deck will grow your Deadeye Plunderers. I like that card more than Master of Etherium for this deck. Another treasure generator we have is Spell Swindle. It's 5 CMC, 3 colorless, blue-blue instant. Counter target spell. Create X colorless treasure artifact tokens, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. They have tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So this is a fixed mana drain for the deck. It costs 5 mana, and you get these artifacts, but you could those artifacts count both towards Deadeye Plunderers, Revel in Riches, Mechanized Production. All of them count. And also, with your Reckless Fireweaver, they count. So you're getting a ton of value off of it. Plus, you can cash all those in for mana later. They're mana fixing, they're mana ramp. And you get to counter an opponent's spell, hopefully a big one with this particular spell. Speaking of counter spells, Stoic Rebuttal is 1 colorless blue-blue instant with Metalcrafts. It costs 1 colorless less if you control 3 or more artifacts. It's just straight up counter target spell. So if you have an artifact deck, if you have a board state with 3 artifacts in play, then you're just going to wind up getting straight up counterspell out of this. And that's pretty darn good. I'll put that in the disruption pile. In fact, I should put the Spell Swindle in the disruption pile. I don't think Deadeye Plunderers and the other ones are worth putting in the mana ramp pile, though. You know what else is going to generate mana and artifact tokens for us? It's the Curse of Opulence. 1 red mana, enchantment or a curse, enchant player. When enchanted player is attacked, create a colorless artifact token named Gold. It has sacrificed this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Each opponent attacking that player does the same. So this is just a super cheap way for you to start generating mana ramp and at the same time start building up those tokens for your mechanized production. And it's a really, really efficient card. I'm going to put that in the mana ramp spells because it's going to ramp you pretty hard there. You know what else generates treasure tokens for us? Treasure Map. It's 2 colorless mana artifacts. Pay 1 colorless, tap it, descry 1. Put a landmark counter on Treasure Map. Then, if 3 or more landmark counters are on it, remove these counters, transform Treasure Map, and create 3 colorless treasure artifact tokens. And it transforms into Treasure Cove, which is a land. You can tap it to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool, or you could tap it to sacrifice a treasure, draw a card. So this lets us scry for 3 turns, and then it becomes mana ramp for us and potential card draw. It's just a general value card. Synergizes really well with mechanized production. Synergizes really well with Revel in Riches, Deadeye Plunderers. So it's a really good treasure card. And it helps us dig out our combo pieces with those scry effects. So it's a win-win-win. Next up is a new value card, Treasure Keeper. It's a 4 colorless mana for a 3/3 artifact creature construct. When Treasure Keeper dies, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card with converted mana cost 3 or less. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Put all revealed cards not cast this way on the bottom of your library in a random order. So you get him in play. He becomes a target for you to sacrifice. You sacrifice him, you get the additional value of getting to dig through your deck for an artifact, either an efficiency artifact or hopefully even one of your combo pieces. So he's deck thinning, he's a sacrifice effect, he's solid value all around. Speaking of value, we have Solid Goblin Tamer. He's 2 CMC, 1 colorless, 1 red, legendary creature, Goblin Artificer, sacrifice an artifact. Target artifact gains indestructible until end of turn. Great for protecting key pieces of your board state. Oh god, another tutor card. Sphinx Summoner, 3 colorless, blue-black, for a 3/3 artifact creature Sphinx that has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact creature card, reveal it, and put that card into your hand. If you do, shuffle your library. Let's see what kind of artifact creatures we might want to get with our combos. We might want to get pili-pala. We might want to get Pentavis. We might want to get Draw Scorpion. That's 3 combo pieces right there. And that's not even counting the additional value cards that we have in the deck. So it's a good solid tutor card. Solid artifact card is Thran Dynamo, 4 colorless mana, artifact, tap, add 3 mana to your mana pool. Straight up, no downside. It's a better Basalt Monolith. That's all there is to it. And of course that can go infinite with the Draw Scorpion combo. Etherium Sculptor, 1 colorless and a blue, for a 1/2 artifact creature, Vidalican Artificer. Artifact spells you cast cost 1 colorless less to cast. Astral Cornucopia. This is something we could tutor up with Trinket Mage. It's XXX artifact Astral Cornucopia enters the battlefield with X charge counters on it. Tap it, choose a color, add 1 mana of that color to your mana pool for each charge counter on Astral Cornucopia. So I can tutor this up with Trinket Mage. I can pay 3 mana to have it tap for 1 mana of any color, which is basically what we're getting with Commander Spear or Darksteel Ingot. But I can also pay 6 mana, I can pay 9 mana, whatever excess mana I have, and I can make this a really big mana rock that's also color fixing as well. So that is an interesting possibility for this deck. I like it, and for now it's going in. Of course, if I do that, it goes infinite with the Draw Scorpion combo. Everflowing Chalice is 0 casting cost, so I can search it up with Trinket Mage. It has multi-kicker 2, which means you may pay an additional 2 colorless mana any number of times as you cast the spell. Everflowing Chalice enters the battlefield with a charge counter for each time it was kicked. You can tap it to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool for each charge counter on Everflowing Chalice. So it's either decent mana ramp, I pay 2 mana to get mana rock that taps for 1 colorless, or I could pay 4 mana, it taps for 2. I could pay 6 mana, it taps for 3, etc., etc., etc. Once I get it to tap for 2 mana or more, it can go infinite with the Draw Scorpion combo. This one is interesting, and I really like it. It's Chief Engineer. It's 1 colorless and a blue for a 1/3 Vidalcan Artificer. Artifact spells you cast have Convoke, which is your creatures can help cast those spells. Each creature you tap while casting an artifact spell pays for 1 colorless mana or 1 mana of that creature's color. So it turns all of my tokens into mana dorks. I like that. Specifically for artifacts, so it's a little bit restrictive, but I still like it. And going back to mana ramp, we have Vidalcan Engineer, 1 colorless and a blue for a 1/1 Vidalcan Artificer. I can tap it to add 2 mana of any 1 color to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. And the ultimate mana ramp spell for this deck is Blink Moth Urn. 5 colorless mana, artifact. At the beginning of each player's pre-combat main phase, if Blink Moth Urn is untapped, that player adds a colorless mana to his or her mana pool for each artifact he or she controls. Now, there's a lot of ways to shut this down. I can make it so that I tap this with Clock of Omens. I can tap this with Improvise. I could tap this with... I'm looking for some other ways that I have in the deck to tap it. So that my opponent doesn't actually get any colorless mana. But even if they do, the amount of colorless mana they're going to get is a small fraction of what I should get every single turn with this. So that's why this spell or this mana rock looks just so appealing in this particular deck. Let's scoot all this stuff over so that it's visible. And of course, Unwinding Clock. It's 4 colorless mana for an artifact. Untap all artifacts you control during each other player's untap step, which pairs super well with Shimmermer. It basically means that every turn they have is my turn. Of course, I can only cast stuff with my mana rocks, but the amount of mana I should generate is going to be obnoxious with this deck. as it is with any artifact deck, realistically speaking. Speaking of artifact decks and artifact synergies, let's look at another classic tutor. We have Kadoltha Forge Master, 5 colorless for a 3/5 artifact creature construct. I can sacrifice 3 artifacts, search my library for an artifact card, and put it directly onto the battlefield. That's power. I can just sack 3 treasure tokens, and I can get anything I want out of my deck, whether it be a combo piece, whether if I wanted to run Bladesteel Colossus, I could do it and just tutor it right out of my deck. And I can do that every single turn with this card. It's fantastic. It's a really, really powerful card. Speaking of just general power and value, we have Baleful Strix. It's 2 CMC, blue-black, 1/1, artifact creature bird with flying and death touch, and when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Now, I really like this card in the Scorpion God deck. Like, I think that's the best place for it. But you're going to get so much value off this. It's a rattlesnake. It defends you so that your opponent doesn't want to attack into you. You can sacrifice it later. You can draw the card off of it because it replaces itself, and you can abuse that with constantly recycling it back into play. This is a really powerful card, and I like it a lot for this deck. Speaking of getting cards back over and over, we've got Hannah Ship's Navigator, 1 colorless, white-blue, legendary creature, human artificer. You could pay, oh, she's a 1/2. You could pay 1 colorless for 1 colorless, 1 white, and 1 blue. Tap her, return target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. Very powerful. If anything gets countered or gets removed prematurely, you get to get it back in your hand. It's a form of card advantage. It's very powerful effect, and it's also super appropriate since we're going back to Dominaria. She was a key figure at Dominaria as a member of the Weatherlights crew. So I'm super stoked that they printed her in Commander 2016 with the promo art. It's a huge upgrade in my opinion, and I really love this card. Speaking of getting stuff back from our graveyards, we have Scrap Mastery. It is 5 CMC, 3 colorless red sorcery. When each player exiles all artifact cards from his or her graveyard, then sacrifices all artifacts he or she controls, then puts all cards he or she exiled this way onto the battlefield. This is effectively living death for artifacts. That's awesome. That's super powerful. I get to board wipe all artifacts, but at the same time, if I filled my graveyard with rummage effects, with wheel effects, with powerful great artifacts, I could get back exactly what I need to combo off that turn. I could just cheat it into play. I don't even have to have the mana for it. That's powerful. I like it. Takes a little bit of setup. It's easier to do in a Duretti deck, but at the same time, the payoff makes it worthwhile. Trash for Treasure. 3 CMC, 2 colorless, and a red sorcery. As an additional cost to cast Trash to Treasure, sacrifice an artifact, return target artifact from your graveyard to the battlefield. Just straight up recursion. And more from the graveyard effects. We've got Open the Vaults, 6 CMC, 4 colorless, white sorcery. Return all artifact and enchantment cards from all graveyards to the battlefield under their owner's control. Now this is symmetrical. There is a non-symmetrical version of this that you can pick up for if you have an unlimited budget. It actually costs 1 less mana as well. But the idea with this deck is that I'm going to get so much more value out of this than my opponents, it won't matter. I'm just going to be able to play all of my combos. I'm going to get all of the value out of this. They might get a couple mana rocks. They might get a decent creature here or there, but I'm gonna see the most benefit from it. And that's the important thing. Just a couple more cards to go. When it comes to interaction, we've got Phyrexian Rebirth. It's 6 CMC, 4 colorless, white, sorcery, destroy all creatures, then create an XX colorless horror artifact creature token where X is the number of creatures destroyed this way. So I get to wipe the board, but at the same time, I get to rebuild my board state faster and potentially go really tall. So that's a good interaction spell for the deck. Also good removal is if Ethersworn Adjudicator, he's 5 CMC, 4 colorless, and a blue 4/4 artifact creature, Vidalcan Knight. With flying, I can pay 1 colorless, 1 white, 1 black, tap, destroy target artifact or target creature or enchantment. And I can pay 2 colorless and a blue to untap him. So depending on how much mana I have, especially in Esper colors, I can continuously tap him, destroy something, untap him, and repeat that process as much as I have the mana for it. Also in Esper colors, we have Filigree Angel. This isn't a cheap one. It's 5 colorless, white, blue for a 4/4 artifact creature angel with flying. When Filigree Angel enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life for each artifact you control. This is a good target for all our recursion effects. Just straight up. But that said, I mean, I'm going to build my board state so fast with this deck that that's going to be a huge value play when I manage to pull her out of the graveyard. So that's a really big life swing that we're looking at right there. Next up, we have Hellkite Igniter. 5 colorless, red, creature dragon, 5/5 creature dragon with flying and haste. You can pay 1 colorless and a red. Hellkite Igniter gets +X/+O until end of turn, where X is the number of artifacts you control. So this is a card that just rewards you for playing your deck. It swings in for massive damage, turns your entire board state into damage. And it's a great win more card. Also a great backup plan in case your combos don't seem to be going off. And last, but certainly not least, we have Mere Battlesphere. Classic combo card. It's an army in a can. It's a 7 colorless mana for a 4/7 artifact creature, Mere Construct. When Mere Battlesphere enters the battlefield, put 4 1/1 colorless Mere artifact creature tokens onto the battlefield. Whenever Mere Battlesphere attacks, you may tap X untapped Mirror you control. If you do, Mere Battlesphere gets +X/+O until end of turn and deals X damage to defending player. Stupid powerful. Army in a can, token generator, great target to flicker with our Eldrazi Displacer, Astronaut's Altar combo. It just does everything, and it's going to crank out so much damage. You can get infinite mirrors with him. He's awesome. Okay, so right now we have 61 card slots. I'm pretty sure this is more than 61 cards, so I'm going to start the whittling down process. First, I'm going to count out how many cards we have total, and I'm going to start looking at the mana curve and what we could do to bring it back under control. Let's see. We'll put Breya here for now, so that if you haven't been watching up until this point, you can follow along with sort of the rationale as to how I want to build this deck. So, some of these cards just strike me as very iffy, but right now I have 83 cards here. I got to cut 22. Let's take a look at the mana ramp. Sol Ring, no brainer. Basalt Monolith, no brainer. Commander Sphere, I don't know. Felwar Stone, Boundary Inspector, Storm the Vault, no brainer. Worn Power Stone, no brainer. Darksteel Ingot, I don't know. Curse of Opulence, I like enough to put in the deck over the other cards. Thran Dynamo, no brainer. Etherium Sculptor, Astral Cornucopia, Everflowing Chalice, Chief Engineer, Vidalcan Engineer, and Blink Moth Urn. Those are a little bit more iffy. I mean, right now, I've got 6 mana ramp spells. Typically, I want to have somewhere between 10 and 12. Are there other mana ramp spells I could pull out of here pretty easily? Absolutely. Put Commander Sphere and Felwar Stone back in pretty easily. Brings me up to 8. Blinkmoth Urn brings me up to 9. Everflowing Chalice brings me up to 10. I think that's fine for now. If I wanted to not count Curse of Opulence, because it's not consistent as some of the other cards, I could consider it a win more card. Then I could put, you know what? No, because I'm going to have mana ramp in my kill conditions as well. So dedicated mana ramp spells, I think this is more than enough. I might even revisit this in Nick's 1 or 2. But for now, I'm cutting 6 cards from mana ramp. And then from interaction spells, I don't have a lot here. This is a combo deck. Our goal is just to race and get the combo online. Scrap Mastery takes some setup, but is ultra powerful. Aether Swarm Adjudicator is really iffy. It's really mana intensive. So I'm going to nix that for now. That's 7 cards eliminated. I'll keep the rest of my interaction spells for the time being. Now, when it comes to tutors and card draw spells, in my arrogant opinion, you can't have enough, especially when it comes to your combo decks. So what do we got here? War of Intervention goes in, no doubt. Trophy Mage goes in. Trinket Mage goes in. Mystical Tutor. That one's a little bit more iffy because when it comes to my combo spells, it really only gets me... what? Dramatic Reversal, Ghostly Flicker. Don't get me wrong. Those are powerful combos. I'll put that in the maybe category. Enlightened Tutor is a must. Gamble's a must. Windfall's a must. Reforged Soul's a must. Skull Clamp's a must. Tezzeret, I like it for a lot of reasons, but Drift of Phantasms is a must. Deem is a must. Ichor Wellspring is just a value card, though. Like, it's not necessarily a must. Same thing goes with Mycoloth Wellspring. Trading Post is a must. Treasure Keeper and Sphinx Summoner. Sphinx Summoner only gets me artifact creatures, which is only a couple of my combo pieces. So Sphinx Summoner might be on the outs. Baleful Strix is a good value card, but it doesn't necessarily speak to what I'm trying to do with the deck. Hannah's a must. Doltha Forge Master is a must. Treasure Keeper, though. Treasure Keeper. It just doesn't give me as much control as the other cards, so I'm going to nix it. I do want to keep Tezzeret in here just to see how that plays out. Of course, I'm going to revisit this real quick when I do the mana curve, but right now I'm just pruning stuff. When I look at it all together as a single body, what doesn't strike me as being powerful enough to justify space in the deck. Okay? So, Mirror Battlesphere, Army in a Can, Astronaut's Altar. I mean, basically all my infinite combo pieces are going in the deck. Just no doubt about it. I'm not even concerned. Like, they're going in the deck. Period. Same thing goes for Reckless Fireweaver and Disciple of the Vaults. They facilitate making these combos deadly, so I like them. Cranial Plating, though, is a little bit iffy. Marionette Master is just a more powerful Disciple of the Vault. It's definitely a worthy inclusion. Treasure Map, though, it does a little bit of everything we want. But I don't know if the payoff is worth it. I'm going to nix Treasure Map right now. Scrap Trawler is powerful, is potentially powerful, but it's also situational. So for now, I'm going to nix Scrap Trawler. How many cards have I nixed? 1, 2, 3, 6. I got to nix 6 more. Oh, Master of Ethereum. Done. 5 more. That was easy. All right, it looks like it's going to be a little bit more difficult for me to accept some of the cards that need to get nixed next. So I got to nix 5 more cards. Let's check our mana curve here. First, we have get these out of the shot. First, we have our 1-drops. Cards like Voltaic Key. Then we have and Goblin Welder. We have our 4-drops over here. Ready, Efficient Construction. Efficient Construction is probably on the short list to get next. Mechanized Production. 5-drops down here. Revel in Riches. Deadeye Plunderers. Slowbad. Goblin Tinkerer is our first 2-drop on the list. Shimmer Mirror. Sorry, 3-drop. Unwinding Clock. Trash for treasure. Open the vaults. Filigree Angel. Way over in the 8-drop spot. Hellkite Igniter in the 7-drop spot. Marionette Masters in the 6. Draw Scorpions in 4. 3. Okay. So, how's this looking? Really heavy on the 3-drop so far. Which in EDH isn't all that uncommon, especially when we're talking about combo pieces that specifically center around the 3-drops. I'm going to put the Reforge the Soul in the 2-drop spot just because I really want to be playing it for its miracle cost most of the time. Otherwise, I'm not sure it's worth it to me. X spells, I'm going to set aside, like War of Invention. Put that over here, excuse me. And Stoic Rebuttal, I'm going to assume that I'm going to have Metalcraft most of the time and put it in the 2-drop spot. Everflowing Chalice is an X spell. I'm going to put it with the X spells. Blink Moth Urn. I've got a good chunk of 1-drops in this deck, though. I wasn't expecting to have so many. Feel pretty good about that. And by and large, my mana curve seems pretty good. Let me check the specific numbers. When it comes to 1-drops, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 1-drops. Not terrible. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 2-drops. 3-drops is where I clearly have the most. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I have 19. Of course, when it comes to the 3-drops, that's where most of my combo pieces live. So it's very unlikely I'll be cutting anything from the 3-drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 4-drops. 7 5-drops. 5 6-drops. 4 7-drops, and 1 8-drop. So I got to cut 5 more cards. I think it's... I didn't want to do it right away, but I think I don't have a lot of alternative. Hellkite Igniter and Filigree Angel are win more cards. Tezzeret is kind of a win more card. Scrap Mastery could work really well, but it also takes some setup. That's 4 of the 5 cards. And Efficient Construction I like because it generates so many bodies, but at the same time, it just doesn't do enough on its own. So I think I'm going to cut Efficient Construction. I'm going to call this a deck. Of course, I'm going to put together the mana base off camera. And just like all our live deck construction videos, I am going to sleeve this up, play test it, and once I've done a little bit of polishing, I like the way it runs, I'm going to come back and give you guys a deck tech on our YouTube channel. If you're not following our YouTube channel, it's metagame mastery. Check out our videos. We've got deck texts. We've got news updates of the banned and restricted list, set previews, and of course we have recaps of our live deck building sessions that we've done previously. And if you enjoy our content, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Otherwise, thank you and have a great day.